How to make Nutella swirl cheesecake. Hi. First, for the filling, we need to set out 2 eggs and 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese because they need a long time to come to room temperature and soften for the filling. We're going to start, though, by making the crust. You'll need about 5 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of melted butter. You will need 1/8 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of powdered sugar, and about 10 graham crackers crushed. You're also going to need a gallon-size baggie to seal the graham crackers in. You're going to need a rolling pin. You're going to need a rubber spatula and a 9-inch pie pan. So take your baggie full of graham crackers, make sure it's sealed really well because we don't want any crumbs spilling out, and we're going to use the rolling pin to just crush them until it's a fine crumb. We don't want any big chunks in here. Here, if you want to mix things up, you can use chocolate or cinnamon graham crackers to add some extra flavor. I'm just using the plain honey graham crackers right here. You don't have to use this technique to crush them. You could use a food processor to get a very fine crumb, or you could put them in a bowl and just crush them with whatever you find. Put some gloves on your hands and use your hands, but I find that this is fast and I don't have to do as many dishes. Alright, you should be getting a nice fine crumb. It should look kind of like dry sand at this point. Next, we're going to mix the dry crust ingredients into a mixing bowl. We're going to put in the graham cracker crumbs and then add in the salt and powdered sugar. Mix these dry ingredients together first before adding your melted butter because we want to make sure there are no clumps or large crumbs or chunks of anything. We want a nice, smooth, homogeneous mixture. When you add in your melted butter, you're going to basically just mix it in until the dry sand mixture looks like wet sand. There is no need to grease or butter or oil your pie pan. We are going to press this crust mixture directly into the pan. So pour out the entire contents. You can use your spatula to try to space it out evenly, but in just a moment we're going to use our fingers to be sure that it's pressed very tightly. We need to compress all of the crumbs and butter together to make a crust. We need to press it into the bottom and up the sides of the pie pan, and you want a thicker layer on the bottom of the pan than on the sides. And then you'll set that aside and we're going to start on the filling. In this mixer on low, I have the 2 packages of room temperature softened cream cheese. To that, we will be adding 2/3 cups of granulated sugar. And we're going to mix that together until they're nice and smooth. When you're making cheesecake like this, it's important that you don't add too many air bubbles. So I have the mixer on low, and you'll also notice that I'm using the paddle attachment instead of the whisk attachment. I don't want to whip it up too much and make it too fluffy. Once your cream cheese and sugar are all smooth and mixed together, we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we're also going to add in our 2 room temperature eggs, one at a time until the whole mixture is creamy and there are no lumps. Alrighty, so this is what it looks like when it's about halfway through mixing. You can see it's getting creamier, but there are still some big lumps, so we need to keep on mixing until it's nice and smooth. Okay, the mixture is now done. You can see it's nice and smooth and homogeneous, so we are ready to pour it into the prepared pie pan. You'll notice that I have a sheet pan under the pie pan. This makes it a lot easier to move because we're going to be taking it in and out of a hot oven several times. So just pour the mixture straight on top of that pie crust. Then use your rubber spatula to smooth it out so it fills the pan, but we want to leave a little bit of the crust peeking out on the top, so don't fill it over the crust. So next I'm going to swirl some Nutella into this mixture. I have a prepared pastry bag with a tip. I used a really large wide tip, but you can use any tip. I have a rubber spatula and I have about half of a cup of Nutella that I warmed in the microwave slightly for about 45 seconds. So when I fill a pastry bag, I always cuff the top. That makes it a lot less messy. It kind of makes a cuff that fits over my hand. That way when I fill it with icing or Nutella or whatever I'm using, it won't overflow over the top and get everywhere. You keep it cuffed while you fill it, and then we're going to straighten it out, and well, you'll see. Having a cup to contain that bag and help it stand up really helps with preventing mess and just having somewhere to put something that isn't flopping over onto your countertop. Alright, next, never overfill your pastry bag. You want to have as much as you could probably hold in your hand and squeeze with your hand. If I put any more than that, then it would just squeeze over the top and out of the top of the bag. You can see I've got a pretty thick nozzle here. So I'm going to put a spiral swirl design into the surface of the filling. You can go about midway through the filling, but you don't want to go in deep enough to actually touch the bottom of the crust. You want to stay kind of closer to the top. You can see that my spiral is not perfect. That's okay, because we're going to do a little something else with it. I'm going to use a skewer to kind of run a trail back and forth through this swirl pattern, and it's going to create like a little feathered look. And you can see I do kind of screw it up, but it's fine. It's going to be delicious. Everyone calm down. You don't have to use this pastry bag and swirl technique. You could just spoon the Nutella into the filling. That would be fine. Either way, once you're done with that, we need to get this cheesecake into the oven. So put it in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. See you in 20 minutes. Hey, it's 20 minutes later. I have pulled this cheesecake out of the oven. It's hot. It is still quite jiggly. And we are going to be putting it back in the oven in just a minute, but first we need to make a crust shield. You can buy crust shields if you make a lot of cheesecakes and things like that, but I'm just going to use strips of aluminum foil. And the point of this is to keep that outer crust that's peeking out from getting burnt and getting too brown and crispy. It's baked enough at this point, and so we're going to protect it with a crust shield now. All you do is, one, remember that this pan is still really hot, so be very quick and gentle and careful. But I'm just going to take 4 strips of aluminum foil and basically cover up the part of the crust that you can see. Once that's done, you want to pop that whole thing back into the oven at 350 for 10 to 20 more minutes. And we're going to check in between to make sure that the crust has reached 165 degrees. This is a good time while we're waiting to review how to calibrate a thermometer. Fill a container with as much ice and water as you can get into it. It's going to be very cold and icy. And then remember that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so when you stick your thermometer into that icy water, it should be at 32 degrees Fahrenheit on the dial. If it doesn't say 32 degrees Fahrenheit, you need to adjust it until it does. So that has been in the oven for about 10 more minutes. I'm going to check the temperature in the center to see if it's reached 165 degrees Fahrenheit. If it has not, I'm going to pop it back into the oven for about 10 more minutes after that. Alright, getting that reading is going to take a little bit of time. You don't have to use Nutella for this Nutella swirl. You could make a raspberry swirl cheesecake and just use some seedless raspberry preserves. Anything that you can pipe in there that is kind of smooth with no clumps or seeds, you can use to make any kind of cheesecake. Or you don't even have to add a swirl, just leave it out and have a plain cheesecake. So the center is not done, it's not hot enough, it's still too jiggly, so I'm going to put that back in the oven for about 10 more minutes and then check the temperature again, and then we get to cool it. Alright, so it's been about 10 more minutes in the oven. I've taken it out. I'm taking the temperature one more time to see if it has reached 165 degrees Fahrenheit. If it has, it should be a little less jiggly in the center, a little bit more set up. It can still have a little bit of jiggle though. That's fine. Alright, so this thing has reached the right temperature. It's still a little jiggly in the middle, but as it cools, it will set up and become firm. We can remove those crust shields now. You need to set this on your counter, on a rack, or on a trivet to cool. And then you need to refrigerate it until you're ready to serve. And it's going to take about 2 hours to cool down and completely set up and get non-jiggly in the middle. Hey, it's 2 hours later. This cheesecake has cooled completely. You can see it's firm, no jiggles. So we can cut into this and have a piece. Alright, well, let's give this a taste. You just slice into it with a butter knife if you like, and I'm going to show you what the texture on the inside looks like. It's pretty good, you guys. It's very sweet. Who knew? Cheesecake and Nutella would be really sweet, but it's really good. Enjoy.